While I was still reminiscent of my all too short trip to the sea, I found myself back in the old mess before long. This video is not trying to tell anyone how to do anything, it's just a record of a guy with lots of problems, little money, but at least the will to persevere. So let me tell you about the situation I found myself in just recently, and how I got out of it all. My garden looked like a wildlife resort and was in dire need of care. One of the reasons for that was that my old lawnmower was broken. At the same time, I was under serious pressure to get my hands on this thing right here. In case you don't recognize it, it's a badge that you can find on the license plate of any regular car here in Germany. It's supposed to prove the vehicle's roadworthiness, and it has to be renewed every 2 years. It is only granted by the authorities if the car passes a general inspection, including safety and smog tests. And you sure can imagine that I had a hard time to get my 19-year-old beater through that one. On top of that, I once more found myself in almost unbearable living conditions. I had been sleeping on this thing without even a bed frame for over 2 years inside what I would call an empty room. Also, my dishwasher had broken down, so the kitchen didn't really look better than the garden. Furthermore, my car's navigation system needed fixing. And because I'm crazy, I also made some more repairs just for the hell of it. So come with me and witness a guy's daily battle against what we in Germany call den Zahn der Zeit, the tooth of time that keeps gnawing on everything and constantly tries to drag it all back to the dust it once came from. Let's start with something simple. My broken dishwasher. The issue was that it simply stopped working one day. It had just finished a last load of dirty dishes when the circuit breakers blew. Something had created a short circuit inside the machine. So I put the damn thing on a dolly, rolled it into the workshop and put it upside down. Now some of you might remember that I made a teardown of a similar Miele brand dishwasher just a couple of weeks ago. In that video I took a closer look at the electronics inside and performed various experiments on them. You can find a link to that episode in the description of this video. I've been talking about this in my earlier video, but just as a refresher, this is the circulating pump based on an induction motor with motor capacitor. This is the lie or discharge pump. In this particular case, based on a shaded pole induction motor. Typically you will find another motor type here though. This is the float switch. And over here we find a filter component and the capacitor of the circulating pump's induction motor. And this looks like it's going to be a simple fix, since a simple visual inspection tells us that the filter component is obviously broken. This is actually the best thing that could have happened in terms of defects. After unscrewing a bunch of screws, I can remove the filter from the enclosure. And it's actually a lucky coincidence that I recently made that teardown of a Miele dishwasher, since I salvaged an almost identical filter from that machine. You can see that the filter consists of a 240 nanofarads class X capacitor between line and neutral, paralleled with two series 50 nanofarads class Y capacitors with their center tab connected to the metal enclosure of the component. In addition, a 1 mega ohm resistor is also connected in parallel. We can also find date codes on here, telling me that my machine is from 1990, while the one I disassembled was from 2005. So why didn't I repair the newer model instead? Well, its control circuit was actually damaged and I couldn't repair it by any reasonable means. But the salvaged parts of that machine are actually also quite valuable. Plus, they are easier to sell online than the heavy dishwasher itself. But be that as it may, let's make some measurements of the old filter. Instead of the rated 1 mega ohm, I measure a resistance of only 890 ohms. That is 1,000 times too small. The meter also can't measure a capacitance between the leads, nor between one lead and the enclosure. This thing is totally broken. But before installing the new filter, let's compare the values. Here we measure pretty much exactly 1 mega ohm and a capacitance that is even slightly higher than the rated value. Seems to be just fine. So let's install the replacement part and screw it all back in place. Put the bottom plate back on and bring the dishwasher back into the kitchen. After reconnecting it to a water supply, let's see if the circuit breaker still reacts. No, it doesn't. It seems just fine, so I load the machine with dirty dishes and insert a dishwasher tab and start the program. A few minutes have gone by and I check if the water is flowing as it should. Looks like it does. And again 15 minutes later or so, the machine has also heated up the water as it should. Now some time has passed and the program has finished. Let's take a look at the glasses, shall we? Well, I'd say problem fixed. This is good enough for me at least. This lawnmower is at least 25 years old. It was built by Sabo in Gummersbach, Germany, but its engine was made by the world's #1 manufacturer of air-cooled combustion engines, the Briggs & Stratton Corporation, headquartered in Wauwatosa, Milwaukee County in Wisconsin. And that's where my greetings go today. Does any one of you know if Briggs & Stratton still produces small lawnmower engines like this one in the US? I tried to find that out by an online search, but I found contradictory information on this. So maybe one of you has a more reliable source. The engine has a power rating of 2.1 kilowatts and the model number is 91708. And if any one of you wants to repair their lawnmower, you can find at least parts lists and owner's manuals on the Briggs & Stratton homepage, even for many old engines like this one. This can be very helpful if you are looking for replacement parts, or if you simply want to know what the proper name for the part is that you're holding in your hand. But luckily, this engine is still running okay. And since I made a complete teardown of two similar engines just recently, I'm happy that that won't be necessary in this case. With this lawnmower, it's just about getting the job done and being able to take care of the garden again. So let's take a look at what must be fixed here. The upper part of this handle, made from steel tubes, is simply held in place by tape, because the bolt that was supposed to do that job is missing. Under here I also find some duct tape that was hiding the fact that the throttle control cable is severely damaged. That's why I will replace the old throttle control lever and cable by this replacement part that I happen to have. In order to do that, I first unscrew the bolts of the old lever and take it off. Then I remove the entire upper section of the steel handle. The throttle control cable has been attached to the lower part of the frame by zip ties, which I simply cut off. The throttle control cable leads from the control lever to the carburetor of the lawnmower's engine, where the end of the cable is attached to the lawnmower. And as you can see here, it really is beyond repair. As could be seen earlier in this video, the lower section of the steel handle is broken, which has made it pretty much impossible to use the lawnmower any longer. I will fix this by welding the two parts together again, but for that the small part here has to be removed first. The bolts holding it in place are sitting only very loosely and are not the original parts. Since I'm already working on the mower, I figured that I might just as well clean it and make an oil change, which I'm sure hasn't been done in a long time. Before I take a look under the mower, I make sure that the spark plug is unplugged. I also fasten it to the frame to make sure that it can't slip back by accident. But with this particular model, it seems that it would be necessary to remove the blade and this fan here to access the drain plug. Since it's all sitting super tight from all the rust though, I decided not to use the plug, but instead release the oil by tilting the lawnmower over. I have now brought the lawnmower outside and used the compressor to clean the mower as good as I can. It is recommended to let the engine run for a few minutes before draining the oil. I have done exactly that off camera. I now tilt the lawnmower over with the air filter and carburetor pointing up. I know it's not the ideal way to do this, but this job simply has to get done. And it has to be done now. And while the remaining oil is slowly dripping out of the engine, I start to remove a thick crust of grass from the bottom of the mower with an old butter knife. By now the oil is pretty much completely drained, and with the oil cap screwed back on, I use the air gun to remove the remaining grass and dirt. And now I fill new motor oil into the crankcase. And after putting some gasoline into the tank and reconnecting the spark plug, I start the engine. Okay, now it is time to repair the broken steel handle. The piece has broken at what I would call a weak spot. The crack is very ugly, and I can only hope that I will be able to establish a new strong connection between the parts. First, I remove the paint all around the crack with a wire wheel. Now I use one of my manual metal arc welding machines to tag the two pieces together. This should be enough so that I can use the TIG welding machine to make a strong weld outside. I went outside because I have neither a ventilation system nor a gas detector down in the basement, at least not yet. Since this simply had to get done, I was forced to perform the welding on the floor. I tried not only to make a simple weld seam, but to add several layers of material to strengthen this critical part of the steel handle. The result doesn't look too good, but I'm still pretty much a beginner when it comes to TIG welding, and I'm okay with the strength of the result. With that being done, I bolt the upper and lower section of the steel handle back in place, making sure that the bolts are sitting tight. Now the new throttle control cable and control lever are being installed and adjusted. And now I tell you it's about time to mow that goddamn lawn. So, okay, the kitchen and garden have been taken care of. But the last repair has shown me one problem with my workshop situation that needs fixing as well. As I said, I don't have a ventilation or gas detection system in the basement workshop, but I'm sure that I will have to do many small welding jobs before I find the time and money to take care of that problem. And that's why I figured that it would be a good idea if I could build some kind of small-scale mobile workbench that I could use to do welding jobs outside. It needed to be done with stuff that I had lying around somewhere, and that is exactly what I'm going to show you now. The idea was to make a small wooden structure with a steel plate on top and wheels on the bottom, so that this mini workbench could be parked inside the garage, taking up the free space behind the car. In this way I would always have a working area at hand and wouldn't need to do these types of welding jobs on the floor. So what I did was to take standard 6 by 4 cm spruce bars and cut them to length, once more using the old Black & Decker jigsaw. And this is the steel plate that will be mounted on top of the workbench. After pre-drilling the holes, I started to assemble the frame by screwing the wooden parts together. And here you see the finished basic structure of the portable workbench. To indeed make it a mobile platform, I will mount these wheels on the bottom. I first mark the spots for the holes, pre-drill and finally screw the wheels in place. And you can see it rolling around. Now, some holes are being drilled in the steel plate as well. They will be necessary to fasten it on top of the frame. And to test what the whole thing will feel like when it's ready, I temporarily screw the steel plate in place. Next, I cut out 2 wooden plates that will act as shelves in the bottom and in the middle of the workbench, and they as well are being screwed in place. And since raw spruce is not a very resilient material, the whole structure is now being painted. For the painting itself, I temporarily removed the wheels and the steel plate again. And after having waited for the paint to dry, and having reassembled everything, the improvised mobile welding table is ready for a first test. So, okay guys, it's already late at night here in Germany and I still have so much to show you, like how I fixed the car and made some furniture for my bedroom. Also how I took care of the navigation system and how I solved a riddle behind this old radio receiver. I can't finish and upload all that today, but I promise to do that tomorrow. Therefore, I make this a 2-part series. See the bright side, you will have something new on both Saturday and Sunday, so see you tomorrow.